Hello all and welcome. This is episode 7 of using black and white film to better understand the photographic process. In this video, we are going to turn your negatives into a positive. We are going to use Lightroom on the desktop and Lightroom on our mobile to process or to edit the scans that we did last video. Let's get started right away. This final step is one of my favorite parts of the photographic process. This is the end point. This is the taking the work you've done to this point and making it a reality of having a final image. This is the one that you are going to present to the world. I believe you need to be open and play around. This is like the playing time. You have no client here. You have nobody watching over your shoulder. You can put it into your program, into Lightroom, and you can make adjustments. You can make all kinds of different variations. And it is the most rewarding part to me. So if you are someone who says, I don't like processing my photos, but this is a really important part of the process. So many decisions to make, contrast, just so much stuff. Now the first section that we are going to do is going to be on our cell phone. If you have the Adobe Photographic Suite, Lightroom Photoshop, then you also have Lightroom Mobile. And Lightroom Mobile is an amazing tool to adjust your photos. I don't take a photo that I don't show a photo that I don't process. Does that make sense? I love this app, and there is a free version of Lightroom Mobile if you don't have the paid version, and it does a lot of this stuff. It doesn't do everything, but it'll do enough to get your photos looking really great. The other app that I use is called Snapseed. It's also free, and it has a lot of things in it that you can do as well. And I usually manually control everything. I'm not really into using the presets. Sometimes I'll go into presets and just scroll through them and maybe see something that I like, but most of the time I manually go right from the image that I've created right to the final image, doing everything manually because I want to control it all. The first thing that you need to do is to hop over to the App Store, whatever phone you're using, and download the Lightroom app. When you're working in Lightroom on your phone or on the desktop, you are actually working with a non-destructive editing software. And that means that you are not changing your original file at all. Like in Photoshop, when you're working on a file, you're working on that file. With Lightroom, it makes a proxy for you to work on, and once you adjust everything and you get it the way you want, you then need to export the photo, and it will lay all of your adjustments onto the photo, and it gives you a new image. So you never touch your original. Just like when we're using film, this is our negative. We always have the negative. So no matter how much we do prints of it, you still have the negative. You can make multiple prints and you haven't destroyed the original image. With Photoshop, when you're working on the original, if you keep doing save without doing a save as and making it into a new file, you could actually damage your original image and you won't be able to go backwards. So Lightroom is a really great tool for playing around and creating the images that you want. So don't be scared to play. That's the big deal about this, is don't be scared to play around. You've downloaded Lightroom onto your phone. Now when you open it up for the very first time, just take some time and go through all of the spots that you can touch and you can open up and just take a look at what's there. You have at the very bottom, it says device, and those are all of the photos that are on your device. And it allows you to choose which album from your device that you want to work on. Now, I had the scans that we did the last time of major with phone, and I put them actually into an album on my phone, and then that's what I have opened in Lightroom. And it's really quite important to stay organized with all of your photos. That's another whole huge thing, is staying organized. When you click on the Lightroom, that is the one that shows you all of the images that you've made adjustments on. So let's go back to device for a moment, and you can see on here there's a little LR, and it has an arrow that points down on the top two, and then right beside that there's an LR that has like a little pencil. So the LR with the pencil is the one that says that we have done some edits on it, but we haven't downloaded it yet. The other ones say we've done edits on it and we've downloaded it already. So it helps you know what you've worked on and what you haven't. So as you can tell, I've worked on these a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a finished image and show you what it looks like. This is the finished image, and when I touch the screen it shows you what the original looked like. So that's the negative and that's the positive. I love doing that. That's the negative and that's the positive. The editing that I'm going to show you is my process. It's not the right process, it's not the wrong process, this is my process. So everybody does things differently, and I'm just sharing with you how I go about creating the final image. Just to keep that in mind. Along the bottom of the app there are two lines of controls. And on the very bottom line we have presets, we have cropping, we have adjustments, we have masking, and we have healing and cloning. So the first thing that I am going to do is crop. And I usually do that first. A lot of times I go in the order of what the app happens to show us. Go figure. They figured out the best process. So I'm going to crop into square, and that looks good. Once you have the adjustment that you want, in this case the crop, down at the very bottom I need to decide whether I'm going to not accept this adjustment by the X, or I am going to accept this adjustment with the check mark. So we hit the check mark. Now we have the negative. Now how do we make that into a positive? We are going to go into the edit, and we are going to go into light and curves, and we are switching from a negative to a positive. So we are inverting the curves. And now we have a positive. Now there's not a whole lot of contrast or anything like that. This is how the negative looks. This is how we took it. There's nothing been done to it yet. I do the light adjustments first. So because you're working with a negative, if you want to go darker, you're moving the exposure up. It's really strange. It's backwards. So if you don't quite get the negative positive thing, just move the slider until it looks good. That's what I say all the time. Just play. So we're going to move it up. We're going to give a little more contrast. I'm going to move the whites and the blacks, and then again, like I said, I just play around. I will change one thing and then I'll go and change something else. That's looking pretty good, but I noticed that there's a tone or something to it. So I'm going to go into color, and up on the top there's a black and white button. Now it's black and white. I'll show you that again. It has a little bit of tone, which is kind of cool. It looks great. You might like that. It's your decision, your artistic decision. I'm going to switch it to black and white. Now I'm going to go back into light. I'm going to play around a little more. Let's see. I'm going to go whites. I'm going to go higher on the whites. Let's go. Yeah, I like that. And then let's go darker on the blacks. I like the high contrast for this, so I'm going to pump it up a little more. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to go over to effects. Blur is to make the background blurry, which I don't need to do in this. And then effects. We are going to do some clarity to make it a little sharper, and we're going to go up on the texture a little bit. Ooh, it's coming together. Nice. And then in vignette, now every photo I do, I put a slight vignette on everything. And to me that just darkens the edges just a little bit, and it brings your attention more to the center of the photo where you want the attention to be. So I'm just going to put a little bit on there. Oh, wrong way. There we go. And oh, that looks so good. Now you'll notice up in the top here, there is a great big dust mark. Yikes. I mentioned this when we were developing our film, that sometimes dust is your enemy. All the time, dust is your enemy. Okay, we're gonna go into heal, and we're just gonna do a little retouching on that spot, and it's gone. We have to make sure that you are accepting the changes that you've made every time. You'll see on his face there's a little mark as well, so we're going to go in and get rid of that as well. So let's go in, and we're going to go in here. I'm actually going to switch to clone. Let's see what that does instead. Now you have to make sure that you're using 2 fingers to move the image around, just like that, moving around. 1 finger puts down the brush. Now I don't use this all the time, so every time I touch the screen I make a mistake, but this time we're going to go a little in here, and you get to move around where you want to clone from. And I think we need to feather this a little more, make the edge a little softer. And we'll go over here. There we go, and done. And accept. And that's it. Look at that image. It looks so great. And we go before and after. Before and after. Love it. Now we have the image in Lightroom. And like I mentioned before, Lightroom is non-destructive, which means if we want to share this, we have to take the image out of Lightroom and export it onto your device, and then you can share it. At the very top, there is a square that has an arrow pointing up, and that is to export your image. Now there's different settings here. You can save a copy, you can share it directly, and the next one, the third one down, is to put a border and share. This is really cool. Now we made a square image, and it doesn't really necessarily fit into Instagram stories or into TikTok, but with this border section you can add a border, and it gives you options for Instagram and for TikTok and for Twitter, X, and you can add a border that will give you the proper proportions to put into your social media. That's really cool. Up at the very top, there's the blue square with the arrow that points down. That means you're going to download it, and it will bring up. You can share it with people directly, you can airdrop it, you can do all kinds of things. If you want to put it on your phone though, you're going to hit Save Image, and it will save it into your photo album. And there you go. It's so simple. It's really easy. As I keep saying, play around with the image. Just take those sliders, move them back and forth, and play. Make all kinds of different adjustments, export it. Every time you export it, you have that version on your phone. So you don't always have to go with exactly the same. Lightroom Desktop Classic. That's what we're using. It's my most favorite program. It's the one I use the most. I don't use Adobe very often anymore because the tools in Lightroom have come so far. I don't really need to use Adobe very much. So everything is one spot. It's really easy. Because Lightroom is such a powerful and huge tool, I am going to assume that you know how to get your images into Lightroom already because you have everything organized so well. Once you have your images into Lightroom, you've imported them in, you are going to see, now when you look at this screen, you'll see that some of these have a yellow tone and some of them look black and white. I've already done some work in Lightroom on them, and it saves the previews for you as you go along. The ones that are yellow are exactly how they come into Lightroom. Because we were photographing using RAW, they have a color tone to them, which we are going to correct at some point. The first thing that we're going to do, though, because we had our camera at a certain direction, we are going to turn all of the negatives at the same time upright so that they're facing the correct way. So you're going to go Command A on Mac, and you are just going to hit the little arrow at the bottom. Now Lightroom is the same whether it's on a Mac or a PC. The difference between the two are usually your shortcuts. I haven't used a PC in years, so I am going to be talking just the Mac shortcuts. Now that you have everything turned, you're going to go Command D and you will unselect everything. You're going to choose one image that we are going to take into develop, and we are going to change it from a negative to a positive. We are going to use this first image that was of the chair in the studio before Major came into our session. And when you double click on the image, it just brings it up into your preview so you can see it better. In order to get it into develop, you can go up to the top and click develop, or you just hit on Mac, you hit D. The first thing that I am going to do is actually crop the image. So at the toolbar at the top, you're going to hit crop, and then where it says original, I'm going to put 1:1, and that will make it a square. And then I can just grab the sides because it stays in the square format, and I am going to bring it in. Now, you know what? On this one, I think I am going to leave where it says Fuji 100 and Acros. Yeah, that looks cool. And then you click again on the crop tool, and it will bring the image up nice and big. Now, in order to switch this from a negative to a positive, we have to go into tone curves. So if we, it's the second one down after the adjustments panel. So we're going to click on tone, and we have to make sure that we are in the linear curve. So it's this second point. And you grab the one end, bring it down. You're going to grab the other end and move it up. And there we go. Your negative is now a positive. When you look at this, it's kind of muted. So now we have to go in and we need to adjust the highlights and the shadows and the contrast and everything and make it the image that we really want. Up at the top again, I usually go through everything on my panels pretty much the way they're laid out. They're kind of laid out that way for a reason. So at the very top, the first thing that I am going to do is switch this image because it has a tone on it, and we are going to make it black and white. Now that tone is gone. We'll show it again. There's a little bit of a color tone because the camera records in color. And then we click on black and white, and it takes all the color away. You can also create black and white by going down and just taking all the saturation out. I'm sure there's a difference between those, but I am not the technical person, as you know. So I just go up and I hit black and white. Now we are going to go down, and the next thing I play with is exposure, and I'm going to make that. And because you're dealing with a negative, you are going the opposite way, which is kind of weird. And if you don't understand how that works, don't worry about it. Just move these sliders back and forth. This is non-destructive editing, so it doesn't matter what you're doing. It is not going to affect your original file, your original RAW file. We used RAW, remember way back when? Maybe I didn't say that when you were photographing your scans. Always use RAW. It gives you way more latitude in your processing. It takes up a lot more hard space. It takes a lot more hard drive space, but it is totally worth it to give you more controls. Now, I've played with the exposure. I'm going to do some extreme things so you can see what I'm saying about playing around with sliders. Now I am going to go, now let's see, let's go this way. This is what I do. Let's go this way. Let's try it that way. I don't know. Oh, that looks kind of cool. Well, let's go back up and change the exposure a little. Oh, that's cool. Or maybe you want to go lighter and just like go, oh, there's so many artistic choices. But I'm going to try and make this look like the scene only in black and white. That's what I'm going to do. So this image you'll see is a little bit soft, which is okay. I was just when I put the roll of film in before I started actually filming last time. But I actually kind of like the feel of the softness. It's a very moody kind of image, and I'm going to go with it. Everything doesn't have to be sharp all the time. That's just my opinion. Just saying. Next step, down to clarity. I'm going to bring up the clarity just a little bit. I'm going to bring up a little bit of texture, and then I'm going to go up and play with exposure again. So as I'm going along, I just go back and forth and play and look at it and see where I want it to be. And then I am going to go down, all the way down to effects, and I am going to add a little bit of a vignette. I add vignettes to everything I do. It's just a little bit on the edge, and it just helps to keep your eye into the center of the image where you want people to look. Now I look at this image, and to me that looks great. Now this is, I'm going through this. We are going to make all of our images black and white, and it's just a baseline, and then we're going to go into one of them and like really fine tune. Now I'm going to use G and go back into the grid. And I'm going to go Command A, which will select all of the images. And we are then going to go into sync settings. And all of my check marks are on because I want to synchronize everything across all of my images. The only one that I might take off is crop. Nah, let's leave it on so that you can see what it looks like. So I'm synchronizing. And then this is the beauty of Lightroom. Look at that. They're all changed. It's great. This is the image that we're going to work on right now because there's a little bit, there's all kinds of dust, which in our mobile app we couldn't see. But there's all kinds of dust, and there is a huge spot here where I didn't squeegee the negative well enough, and it's a water drop from when we developed the film. Let's go into develop, and we're going to go into crop again, and let's just tidy up this crop. And I'm actually going to come in a little bit more. I'm going to turn this just a little and a little bit more. Great. And into our exposure, I'm going to go darker. This image, I think, needs lots of contrast. And I'm going to move up the contrast. Oh, love it. Look at that. I knew it was going to be like that. Sometimes when you're taking the photos, you just know which one it's going to be. Now I'm playing with the highlights because it's quite blown out there, but I kind of like it. And again, this is your image, so you get to make it the way you want it to be. And I really like the high contrast on this, so that's what I'm going to do. And I'm not listening to anybody else. This is your image, like I said, so you get to do what you want to do. You don't need to listen to everybody else. But if you are doing something, have a reason for doing it. I like this look. So when somebody does a critique and says, oh, it's too contrasty, then you can come back and say, that's what I was going for. Thank you. The other thing that this did when we changed the contrast and we made it so dark is a lot of the little dust spots disappeared. Yay! Which is great. I actually really like it dark like this, but maybe let's just go a little lighter. Let's just get so we can see his ear just a little bit. I don't want it pitch black. And I may change my mind. Now, we're going to go in and there's a whole bunch of dust spots here and then this watermark. So let's go into clone, into healing, and I think I'll use healing. We're just going to do that. We'll click on all the spots. Yeah, sometimes it chooses the weirdest spots. You know, let's go in a little closer. There. Ooh, there's a little bit of dust. Dust is not your friend. There we go. Now, how are we going to deal with this water spot? I have lots of issues with the remove and the heal and the clone. It's like, you know, when they show it, it's like, oh, it just works. It's beautiful. It doesn't always just work. Sometimes you have to play around with it. It drives me crazy. Yeah, so when you sometimes you'll choose what you want it to do, and then it goes to a weird spot and it makes it look even worse. But in this time, I think it actually is doing a pretty good job. Let's see. Let's take a look. And we're gonna close that. That actually looks pretty good. Next step, yeah, it's looking good. Over in this one corner right here, this is actually the handle of the reflector that I was using. And I'm just going to go in and I'm going to take that out as well. So I'm going to make the brush size bigger by using the brackets on my keyboard. And we're just going to do a little like that. And that should do the trick. Let's see. Looks great. Love it. People are always complaining about the hairs on things. When we were using film, what you got is what you got. Now that we're using digital, you can go in and easily take out the hairs. Then we come into, is that the true image? Have you manipulated it? Do you want to manipulate it? Do you want to stay real? And with AI, that's a whole other like craziness, which is, you know, we use a few AI things in here too. But you get to make those decisions. Again, it's your decision, your artistic eye that is going to tell you whether you want to take out this little curly hair at the bottom or not. And I think I'm going to take this one out just because it's a little distracting and it wasn't there. Now I might change my mind. We're going to do this little thing. Let's see, move that around. Let's go up there. Do we want to leave it out? Yeah, and then I'm going to take the other one right beside it. Whoops. See, sometimes, yeah, it doesn't work the way I want it to, but that's okay. All right, let's see. Great. I love the look of this image and I'm going to leave it this way for now. I may come back to it at another time and change it because I can. It's my image. Sometimes I find walking away for a little while and then coming back makes a big difference. I may see it in a different light and I may want to change things. And that's the beauty of Lightroom. It keeps all of your adjustments so that you can come back to them and you can change it. If you want, you can export the image just as it is. You can make a virtual copy and do a whole other set of adjustments to it if you want. And then you can see all of these different adjustments and choose the one that you like the best. The next step I'm going to do is we are going to export this photo. You are going to right click, you're going to go to export, and you are going to set where you want the image to go. Again, it's really important to have your folders and your files named properly so that you can find where they belong. So this is from Major Scans. I'm going to choose that. It's already there. I'm going to put it in a subfolder and I'm going to say Final. And then you get to come down and you can choose the file setting that you want, whether you want JPEG or TIFF or you want to have the original RAW file but have the changes that you made with that original RAW file. If you are going to get it printed, this decision is really important. You need to know what your printer wants the files in. A lot of times they'll say a TIFF because it isn't as flattened, has more information in it than a JPEG. But if you're not going huge, then a JPEG is going to be fine. If you're going to send it just for a final, like for proofing, then a small JPEG is just fine. And we're going to do JPEG, and then we are going to hit export. And that's pretty much it on how to get your scans, your negatives into a positive. There's so much more you can play with, but that's the key. Just play with it all. Play around, adjust. Don't be scared. The more you play with Lightroom and the adjustments, the more you will understand them. And nothing you read and no other YouTube channels or anything that you look at are going to help as much as you playing with your own images and just change all of those sliders. Oh, what does this do? Be curious. And you will find that you might have your image looking different than what you thought because you were playing around and you came up with something totally different. And there we go. We are at the end of this series. We have the finished images. We started off with deciding we were going to use film, and we decided the film, we decided the studio, we decided strobes, we developed the film, we adjusted the film, we copied the negatives into our digital devices, and we use Lightroom to process them. That's the whole shebang. Now with digital, you do a lot of the same things, but with film, it's just a different process. It's not necessarily better or worse or anything like that. In my mind, it's just a different process. So in conclusion, if you really want to expand your knowledge of photography, try some film. It's a whole different experience. Thanks so much for joining me. If you really enjoyed this video or the series of videos, just give a little thumbs up below and subscribe. Coming up in the near future are conversations with Wendy D. I've been talking to a few other photographers and I can't wait to share those conversations with you. Stay tuned and don't forget to breathe. Thank you.